Hi, my name is Diamond Gulick. I'm a math consultant with Green Hills AEA. Today I want to talk to you about Fastbridge and data. I want to remind you the purpose of a universal screener, and that's to, one, assess the health of universal instruction, and two, to identify students that are at risk. We're going to use this Fastbridge training site to walk through two of the reports that you can use that will help you to assess the health of universal instruction, as well as identify those students that are at risk. So if we go along the top in this blue bar, we're going to go over to the reporting tab. There are many reports available within Fastbridge, but please keep in mind that the purpose of a universal screener is to assess the health of universal instruction and to identify students that are at risk. The purpose of a universal instruction is not to diagnose, it's not to find skills that students need help in, and it's not used to guide instruction. A universal screener is used to assess the health of the universal instruction, and two, to identify students that are at risk, and those two purposes only. So we are only going to use two of these mini reports. First, we're going to look at the group screening report. We're going to click on A Math. We're going to click the appropriate teacher, and then I'm going to click the fall interval. When the first screen comes up, this is the norm view, and we can tell so by where it says normative categories, as well as the color of the bars. When we see the different reds, yellows, greens, and blues, we know that we're in norms. And so if we go over to where it says color coding, where my mouse little finger is, and then go down to benchmarks, we'll see that it'll turn it into the pinks and the purples, plus it says benchmark categories at the top, which means that we are at the correct screen. So again, one of the purposes of a universal screener is to be able to assess the health of universal instruction. So that's what I'm going to use this bar graph for, is to determine what that health is. So first, this first category, this darkest pink, these three dark pink bars, represent students that are at high risk. The F stands for students that were high risk in fall, the W for winter, and the S for spring. So since this is a fall screener, we're looking at this 9% of students that were at high risk in the fall. Then in this lighter pink color, these are represented with this light pink color are students that are at some risk. So in the fall, 30% of my students were at some risk. The two purple categories are students that are at or above a benchmark. So this darker of the purple colors, this 13% in the fall, represents 13% of my students were at low risk. And then 48%, this much lighter purple, represents 48% of my students were advanced. So if I want to use this information to gauge the health of universal instruction within this classroom, I'm going to look at the total number percentage of students that were at risk. So I have 9% and 39%, representing 39% of my students are at risk. We'd really like this number to be 20% or lower when we think of that MTSS triangle. It would be really hard for me to be able to attend to an intervention for 39% of my students, meaning that I need to have something else I can do with these students, whether it's I need to look at my curriculum, I need to look at my instructional time, I need to look at, am I teaching according to what's in the standards, right? A variety of universal instructional tools that would help me to do better in universal classroom within my universal instruction. So because this is 39%, that does give us a little bit of reason of concern about the health of the universal instruction. So when we scroll down, we'll be able to see individual students and their scaled scores. And we also notice that there's exclamation points and stars, and some students don't have anything next to them. So the defaults to also putting these students alphabetical by their last name. We can sort these kids by, if we click underneath fall, we have this little square that pops up, and if you click the top part of the square, it'll sort your students from the lowest score to the highest score. And the nice part about this is that it puts your students that are at risk right at the top of this screening report. And so I can see these students that have 2 exclamation points. That represents those students that are at high risk. So if I hover over that high risk column again, it says 2 students. Well, it's these 2 students that have those 2 exclamation points. The students with the single exclamation points are the students that are in this some risk category. The students that don't have anything next to them are represented by this darker purple, which is students that are at low risk. And then if I scroll down a little bit more, I can see students that have that star next to them, which is representative of being in this advanced category. So those are the 2 things that we want to use this group screening report for, as well as just this universal screener. We want to be able to assess the health of our system, and then we also want to be able to identify our students that are at risk. And we did so by just looking at this one group screening report. There's one more report that you may want to look at for a little bit of additional information. So I'm going to click on reporting again, but this time I'm going to go to individual skills report, which on this computer is just the second or the third row over, or third column over. Again, I need to click on A math, the appropriate grade level, and then fall, maybe. There we go. And so this report is the individual skills report. You have to be very, very careful in this report. We only want to look at the top 2 graphics, and I do not want to scroll down to see any of the other information, because again, that information that's underneath is not, does not follow what's appropriate for a universal screener. A universal screener, again, shows us 2 things, and that helps us to assess the health of the universal instruction, and 2, to identify students that are at risk. So the nice thing about this report is that I can see where the student scored in relationship to those cut scores. So at 217, my student was marked in advanced, and I can see that that's about 4 points above where the cutoff is for advanced. And so it kind of shows me if I have students that are on the bubble, especially if I have students that are in this low risk category, and on our bubble kids for this some risk category. And that, we'd want to keep those students in mind as we're teaching. So that is all that we want to use this screen for, is really just that chart to kind of see where our student falls within that at risk or risk continuum. There is a ton of information below, but again, that is outside what a universal screener, the purpose of a universal screener. So really, really suggest that you use your universal screener to collect those 2 pieces of data, and those 2 pieces of data only. Please do not item analyze. Do not look for those skills that students need help in, and please do not use this to direct your instruction. Just use it to assess the health of the universal instruction, and then use it to identify your students that are at risk. So thanks guys for listening to me. Have a great day.